Welcome to The Other Side. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. If you follow mainstream international headlines, the narrative surrounding West Africa sounds like a unified, monolithic problem. You hear warnings of a massive jihadist contagion sweeping down from the Sahel straight into northern Nigeria. Speculation is rampant. Al-Qaeda and ISIS pulling their resources together? Are they working together to build a massive, uninterrupted Islamic caliphate stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Lake Chad? It's easy to look at a map of conflict zones, color it with all one red brush, and assume that there is a single mastermind behind it all. But when you look closer, when you step down into the other side of the headlines, the reality is far more complicated, far more fractured, and in many ways, far more volatile, making it very difficult to understand what is actually happening. But of course, there are signs, there are symptoms that things are not the same in every part of the globe. Today, we are unpacking the real anatomy of the threat in the Sahel and northern Nigeria. We're going to look at the bloody civil war being fought between terrorist networks, the terrifying phenomenon of operational blurring on the ground, and a dangerous new actor in northwestern Nigeria that everybody is talking about. That is the Lakurawas. Let's get into it. First, let's address the biggest piece of speculation first. Are Al-Qaeda and ISIS working together globally or regionally to build a unified empire? The answer from what Al-Qaeda and ISIS are is an emphatic no. Globally and ideologically, ISIS and Al-Qaeda are mortal enemies. They are locked in a bitter, bloody, tough war for the soul of the global jihadist movement. And nowhere is this corporate rivalry more violent than in the wider Sahel, specifically Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. In the Sahel, Al-Qaeda's primary coalition goes by the name JNIM, Jamatu Nasru al-Islam wa Muslimini. Their bitter rival is the Islamic State's franchise, ISSP, that is Islamic State Sahel Province. Years ago, these groups maintained an easy, localized non-aggression pact. They shared a common enemy, that is state militaries and Western forces. By Western forces, I refer to the European forces that were in Africa, as well as the American military outpost in Africa. But by 2020, that pact shattered into full-scale fratricidal war. Why are they fighting? They are fighting primarily because their models for an Islamic state are completely incompatible. Think of it as two radically different corporate strategies. Al-Qaeda's JNIM uses a gradualist approach. They embed themselves within local tribal conflicts, exploit ethnic grievances, and position themselves as community protectors before slowly imposing their rule. ISIS, on the other hand, uses a model of uncompromising immediate brutality. They roll into territories, demand absolute allegiance to their central command, and instantly implement a rigid, violent governance structure, the type ISWAP and Boko Haram are struggling to enforce in parts of north central Nigeria and mainly in the northeastern part of Nigeria. According to credible counter-terrorism data, this infighting hasn't slowed down. In fact, throughout recent years, JNIM and ISSP have engaged in some form of the deadliest clashes in record in regions like northeast Burkina Faso. They are not planning a joint caliphate. They are killing each other over who gets to rule the ruins and perhaps set up the caliphate. Each of these groups is fighting to become the group that will lead the caliphate. But if their leadership commands them to kill each other, where is there so much speculation that they are working together inside Nigeria? This is why the grand ideological theories of global jihad clash with the chaotic reality of survival on the ground. This is the phenomenon analysts call operational and tactical blurring. While the central commands of ISIS and Al-Qaeda mandate that their followers treat each other as apostates, the remote, ungoverned spaces of northern Nigeria force a highly pragmatic approach. that the leaders on the ground are using. In the rugged rural belts of Nigeria, like the Sambisa Forest in the northeast or the Kainji Forest Reserve in the north central, local insurgent cells don't always have the luxury of ideological purity. When you are under heavy pressure from the Nigerian military, its air asset and troops on the ground, and the regional task forces, as well as pressures from the United States of America, survivor trumps ideology. Intelligence reports and local security monitors paint an alarming picture of transactional coordination. Even if it's transactional, it is yet coordination between the two rivals. First, shared smuggling corridors. Factions of ISWAP, that is Islamic State West African Province, and Al-Qaeda aligned elements have been documented using the same underground networks to move fuel, food, and medicines. Second, weapon trafficking. Arms dealers don't care about ideology. Weapons smuggled south from Libya change hands fleetly between rival cells. Tactical lining. And then there is the issue of tactical lining. We are increasingly seeing a democratization of terror tactics. Technical issues like consumer drone modifications and improvised explosive devices designs are being copied and shared across ideological divides. Many that some of the strength and the knowledge and the capacity of each of the rival groups, say the Al-Qaeda, is freely also shared with the rival ISWAP on the ground and at the tactical level. And fourth, this isn't a holy matrimony, it's a marriage of convenience. A local commander under pressure will buy weapons from or share a forest hideout with rival groups simply to live to fight another day. And often neglected is the politics of religion in Nigeria. Many of the operatives of both the Al-Qaeda and the ISWAP on the ground do not even understand or agree or even know the ideological differences between the two rival groups. All they know is that the groups are fighting for an Islamic supremacy in Nigeria. Many, therefore, that they don't even care, they don't even know who is working with them. All they know is that the persons working with them have the same ideology, that they should be the people that should dominate Nigeria and the Sahel region. Nowhere is this fluid, opportunistic blurring more evident than in the sudden, violent emergence of a group that has taken northwestern Nigeria by storm, that is the Lakurawa. To understand who they are, we have to look back to how they started, because their story is a perfect masterclass in how local governance failures opened the door for international terror. The 2017 to 2018 genesis of this journey. For years, communities in northern Sokoto were terrorized by brutal, non-ideological bandit gangs, stealing cattle, raiding villages, and killing people, kidnapping large number of people and collecting huge ransoms from them. Feeling entirely abandoned by the state, local leaders made arrangement, a desperate one and a dangerous one at that. They invited armed pastoralists, the fighters from Niger and Mali, to come across the borders and act as mercenaries to protect them against these local bandits. The locals called these headers protectors from Niger and Mali Lakurawa, a local Hausa corruption of the French word that means recruits. Then came the radical shift. At first, it worked. The Lakurawa used their superior tactical training to drive bandits away, but they did not leave. Instead, they settled in the border forests, overthrew local leadership, and began enforcing a harsh fundamentalist lifestyle. They publicly flogged youths for shaving their beards and began extorting the population through zakat, an Islamic religious tax they collected forcefully, sometimes confiscating cattle. Though the Nigerian military managed to push the Lakurawa back into Niger a few years ago, a massive geopolitical tremor allowed them to return with a vengeance. When the military coup rocked Niger in 2023 July, fractured diplomatic relations between Nigeria and Niamey. When border patrols were halted, the Lakurawas looked at that as an unmonitored porous borderline and saw and a golden opportunity. They flooded back into northwestern Nigeria, loaded with advanced weaponry, satellite communication gear, and cash. To swell their ranks, they began offering vulnerable, impoverished local youths recruitment incentives of up to 1 million naira. By 2024 and 2025, they were launching sophisticated attacks on civilians and security forces alike. The threat grew so critical that it pulled international military action, culminating in the highly profile counter-terrorism operations, including the U.S. air strike on their strongholds in December 2025. But then why does a group in the remote corner of Sokoto matter to the rest of the region? This is because the Lakurawas represent the ultimate security nightmare, the land bridge. They operate precisely in the tri-border corridors between Nigeria, Niger, and Benin Republic, the exact geographical sweet spot needed if Islamic state franchises in the Sahel ever want to build a physical connection to the massive powerhouse that is ISWAP in the Lake Chad Basin. And so let's begin back to the core question asked at the beginning of this episode. ISIS and Al-Qaeda working together to build a mega caliphate across the Sahel and northern Nigeria. The evidence shows that the threat is not a grand unified empire orchestrated by a single command chain. But in many ways, the reality is far more dangerous. The threat is real, but it is fragmented. We are not facing a single coordinated army. We are facing a highly fluid, chaotic ecosystem of competing franchises, local bandit gangs, and crime territory hybrids like the Lakurawa. They don't need a formal alliance to tear the fabric of any region. They just need porous borders, fractured international diplomacy, and rural communities that feel abandoned by their governments. When the state fails to provide security, justice, and economic hope, groups like the Lakurawa will always step into the vacuum, first pretending to be saviors and eventually revealing themselves as oppressors. The battle for the Sahel and northern Nigeria won't be won by just tracking the shifting alliances of terrorist logos. It will be won by closing the governance gaps that allowed those logos to exist in the first place. This is the view from the other side. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit the subscribe button, drop your thoughts in the comments below, and share this video to bring clarity to a complicated world. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.